Yeah, so from the most mammoth of mammoth dialogue to at least the most peak mammoth name, given how interested he seems to be in this topic, Heist.
Yes. Yes, Heist, in which Gene Hackman's Joel Moore is coming to the end of his life of crime, and not just because an unexpected wrinkle in a jewellery store robbery means he's finally been caught on camera. But before he can sail off into the sunset with his co-conspirator wife, Rebecca Pidgeon's Fran, his fence, Danny DeVito's Mickey Bergman is rather insistent that Joe and the gang pull off one last job that he's already been setting up. And so Joe, Fran, and also Delroy Lindo's Bobby Blaine and Ricky Jay's Don Pinky Pincus start readying themselves to pull off an audacious gold heist from a transport plane, accompanied to their distaste by Mickey's nephew, Sam Rockwell's Jimmy Silk, whose inexperience and differing agendas soon complicates things. And indeed, complicating things is very much the theme of the piece, as plans go astray, as do the backup plans, and the backup plans, either through bad luck or nefarious designs on the parts of the various players involved in this web of deceit. Now, there is a school of thought, it seems, that because Heist is not advancing a flashy or pyrotechnical agenda, it's not advancing the state of the art of crime capers. That's as maybe, but what it certainly does advance is a damned entertaining film with a sort of multi-layered con job plot that by this point is it's honed to an art form. Gene Hackman is of course excellent, and it's his wily performance as a man who's always a couple of steps ahead of everyone else that anchors the film, alongside solid support from Lindo. Curiously, I found myself somewhat disappointed with Sam Rockwell's turn, and I don't think that DeVito quite gets his teeth properly into his performance. These are minor niggles, however, and overall it's a hyper-competent and very enjoyable watch. Perhaps it doesn't quite blow the doors off, but it certainly shouldn't be driven into the sea. Yes.
For me, this was an enjoyable watch.
Yay!
In combination with a number of films on this list that we're doing tonight, it was fine. It was enjoyable enough. The performances are reasonable. It's quite entertaining. However, and again, I deliberately went into these films cold and knew almost nothing about them, right? Every single twist that came, I saw coming, and I'm just like, I wasn't trying. I've said before, I can't switch that part of my brain off, but I could see them coming like a mile away. So I don't think David, he loves these things, but he can't write them. But the interplay between the characters was entertaining enough. I found it quite entertaining. I don't have a lot to say about that other than that there's a strange mix of kind of fun dialogue in here and some absolutely honking dialogue. Now, for example, like, it feels more like a Tarantino sort of thing than a David Mamet thing, but there's a line where it says, something's talking about Delroy Lindo, and I know it's not. It's about Gene Hackman.
Yeah, he's talking about Hackman. Yeah.
My mofo is so cool. When sheep go to sleep, they count him. That's a fantastic line. But then in the same film, and not that far away, I think, Danny DeVito's lumbered with the line, "Everybody needs money. That's why they call it money." That's one of the worst lines I have ever heard in anything.
I freaking love that line.
I hate that line. It's meaningless.
It makes no sense. It's perfect.
Yeah.
I much prefer money being a motive with a universal adapter kind of deal from
That's it.
Way of the Gun.
Way of the Gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so $11 million isn't money, it's motive with a universal adapter on it. Yeah, that's a great line. Yeah, it's fine. What about, just before move on to Craig's thoughts on this, and at the risk of alienating both Craig and Scott in the one episode and have them not talk to me again, this film, largely at my request, with a bit of input from Craig, was swapped out for another film called The Spanish Prisoner, which I decided to watch as well, because, 6 films in 3 days by David Mamet that I wasn't particularly enjoying wasn't enough. I got in for a 7th. And it also is fine. And Scott's particularly fond of it, but it also is fine. David Mamet cannot write twists because you can see them all coming, but it's the stuff around it that makes it entertaining. And my fears of The Spanish Prisoner being unwatchable because of Steve Martin, we're okay because he's A, not in it that much, and B, Steve Martin is actually tolerable when he's not trying to be funny because he can't do funny.
Spanish Prisoner's great.
It's fine.
It's great.
I'm
glad we've all agreed that Spanish Prisoners are great, but Craig, what did you think of Heist?
Well, Scott, before we get to Heist, let me just reiterate that The Spanish Prisoner is great.
It's fine.
And I think Heist is great. I really enjoy Heist. It was maybe only like the 3rd Mamet film I think I'd ever seen, and I remain really fond of it. I think it's probably like my 2nd favourite Mamet film at this point. Not the best, not even the second best, probably technically, but still my second favourite. I just get a lot out of this, and even on repeat viewings. I think this is to my mind, this is a really nice balance between the commercialism of that sort of One Last Job heist movie with the sort of slightly more diluted Mamet dialogue.
Dogs of the Mamet.
Don't dilute Mamet's dog. He's done nothing wrong. That slightly more diluted form of the dialogue that probably makes it a little bit more palatable, broadly speaking. And there's just so much to enjoy about this. Like, Danny DeVito should get shot in more films because it just feels really satisfying. And I think that's one of my favourite final lines or payoff lines in a film is don't you want to hear my last words? I just did. I also love the fact that in the last 10 minutes of this film, Delroy Lindo becomes a shotgun-wielding jack-in-the-box. He just springs up from behind people to blow guys away with a shotgun, just really inexplicably.
The best use of Delroy Lindo, I find, even in like legal dramas like The Good Fight, you just pop up with a shotgun.
Yeah, and Ricky Jay just comes across as if he's asleep. He feels like he's in an almost entirely different film to everyone else, more so than usual in this film, because obviously he's not a professional actor or anything, but he comes across as a little bit more stilted in this film, but it kind of works in a weird way, and I don't disagree with him on cuckoo clocks. I think he's got that nailed. There's just a lot to like about this, and even though it is that sort of One Last Job, I find even things like the motivation behind it are slightly refreshing and perhaps more sort of realistic. I mean, I can't get behind casually using bombs in bins as a distraction, but maybe that's just a side effect of having grown up in the 80s in Britain, where the IRA were doing that sort of thing to devastating effect, not just as a distraction tactic, but to kill people in city centres. But there's I just find this really enjoyable. I think it's probably one of the more accessible movies. And I mean, has Gene Hackman ever been bad in anything? He's just really engaging in this. And
Superman 4.
Granted.
No, Gene Hackman's great in Superman 4. Superman 4 is awful, but Gene Hackman's great in it.
I don't think I've ever seen it, but I don't intend to.
I may be conflating the terrible film with a not a terrible performance. Scott, you may be right.
I've never seen Superman 4, but I'm well aware of the production history of that. I'll be steering well clear.
It's not quite RoboCop 3, but close enough.
This is just a really nice balance of all those elements, and a subject matter that obviously Mamet is clearly infatuated with, and I just think it's a really enjoyable hour and 40 or whatever it is that I've never had any beef with coming back to be honest.
No, again, it's fine. I enjoyed watching it.
We said that. It's great.
It's
why do you just keep repeating what Scott and I have said? We know it's great.
And it's like
it's like The Spanish Prisoner. It's great.
Which is it's perfectly fine, but it's the character motivation to like the Rebecca Bidgen's character, the end of Heist. Like, that seems weakly motivated to me, especially given that you were asked to go and do this thing and you agreed to it seemingly quite happily, and other people are putting their lives on the line, so it's not like you were being asked to do anything other people weren't doing in some ways. Like, why is she going off with Sam Rockwell? Because the plot demanded it, like, not because it actually made sense for the character. It's like, no.
To be fair, I'd go with Sam Rockwell.
So would I.
Yeah,
I think he's dreamy.
I was just, honestly, while he was very disappointing in this film, I was most disappointed that I didn't see Sam Rockwell's arse, because apparently that was his big thing, as you recall from our Sam Rockwell episode. It's like, it apparently wasn't a big enough player then to demand that in his contract.
Demand to get my waps out.
If I do have one sort of egregious piece of feedback for this film, it is related to Sam Rockwell, but it's not necessarily his performance. It's
his moustache.
No, it's why I really just wish they hadn't given his character a porn star name. Jimmy Silk. Nobody's called Silk. Go away. It just feels really weird to me. It doesn't sit well on my palate. Sorry. But great.
I mean, it's better in The Spanish Prisoner in one way that it doesn't rely on ridiculous coincidence. So, it's actually better in that way. So, but again, both are fine.
Yes, both are great.
I don't regret watching them, but I'll never watch them again.
Shall we?
Thank you for tuning in to this review of The Spanish Heist Prisoner.
Oh dear.